watching Notepad and I'm your host Ibrahim Sani. Today we shall discuss SCxSC, a Fintech Conference that is an annual affair conducted by the Securities Commission. Every year they talk about the latest ongoings of the Fintech world, and this year is no different. They're going to have it on the 22nd, 23rd of October. Joining me today is the Executive Director of Securities Commission, Wei Min. Wei Min, thanks for spending the time to discuss with us some of the things that are taking place over SCxSC. First of all, let's understand the origins of how this Fintech Conference came about. If you ask the regular guy, what does the Securities Commission do? They say, aren't they the regulator of the capital markets of Malaysia? How then do they bridge that knowledge of you guys being the regulator of the capital markets with that of being an organizer of the Fintech Conference? Why would you be a promoter on top of the fact that you're a regulator?
Thank you for inviting me here, Ibrahim. There's a great question you asked. Indeed, we are a regulator for the securities industries. We do have a twin mandate, both for the market development as well as the market integrity. For the SCxSC, which stands for Synergistic Collaboration by the SC. This is our 6th year running this. Since 2014, we have been organizing the FinTech event. This is part of a broader mandate to educate and to reach out to our community. I think I can think back in the 2014 where we actually started up with a very small group of fintech enthusiasts and a very small community. To today, I think 6 year running, we are now having a very diverse topic catering to a broader group of people. So in this event, we are trying to cater to a broad segment of the audience, which are ranging from the technopreneur, issuers, investors, and maybe the broader public at large.
Of course, the main idea, the underlying issue of why you guys want to do this is because you want to improve on the capacity for businesses and perhaps even individuals to access greater ways of financing. There are traditional ways of getting financing for growing your business, from bank loans to even development banks dishing out, grants. But fintech is another way for businesses to access alternative way of getting funding. And that's something that is driving the conversation right now. How can SMEs in particular gain alternative financing through, say, for instance, attending events like SCxSC?
Yeah. Maybe I'll take you back to our overall digital agenda for the industry. We have 4 major objectives that we're trying to achieve. The first one is to enhance access to financing, which is one of the core part of how do we provide financing to the micro and SME industries. As we all know, Malaysia made out of about 1 million micro and small and medium enterprises, which probably cover about 65% of our working population. They have traditionally struggled somewhat from a traditional sources of financing beyond, the usual friends, family, and some fools.
Yes, the triple Fs.
Yes. So in that case, what we have done as part of the overall digital agenda for the industry is to consider different business model. In this case, crowdfunding, helping to actually meet that needs. To give you a little bit of statistics, I think since about 2-3 years in operation now, between equity crowdfunding and peer-to-peer financing, we have raised more than 430 million, helping more than 1,200 enterprises which raise money that can help them, ranging small amount from like 30,000 all the way to, R500,000 ringgit to help these micro and small and medium enterprises access to financing.
Of course, when you talk about this number, right, 430 million ringgit raised over the past few years, in comparison to other markets, is that a lot of money being generated, or is that still nascent in its development?
It is a very nascent industries, although I think there is a huge need for the micro and SMEs. However, the amount that they need is actually very small. Right? So more frequent than not, a lot of times people talking about big bank loans like you say, but I think SME generally need between tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of ringgit. So if you translate that to 430 million, actually it's it represents a few thousands of campaigns that we run in the last 2.5 years where these people are looking for financing. A good example, let me point to you, that's a single mother in Sarawak who is having this cool idea of doing a super worm farm having great struggle to get to access to financing. So she has actually used equity crowdfunding to raise money, and today she's reasonably successful using her worm farm, both for edible foods all the way to waste management, and be able to run her businesses.
Sorry, this is a real case study. This
Yes.
is not a hypothetical issue.
No, this is a real case study. We do have, she has actually reached out to one of our equity crowdfunding platform, who actually say, I want to raise this much money to enable to realize my business dreams in this case. So she actually pitched her idea online on the platform, which in turn appealed to the broader investor group. They like her idea. They will pitch in and gave her some money to allow her to start up her businesses, which traditionally for a profile like her tend to be very difficult.
Yeah, of course. There's no historical track record, there's no future probability of cash flow, whatever, the normal things that banks are looking at.
Generally just very difficult. And then her idea on a worm farm.
Even the business idea is questionable.
But today I think she has made it, so I think that's good.
Banks normally lend to people who don't need the cash. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think here we are. You will look back in 2016 when we started the whole equity crowdfunding scene. I think we're also a part of the process for our investor. If you look at back in 2015-16, a lot of our campaigns then was actually fairly brick and mortar, because our investor also need to get used to it, say, I need to invest in something I can touch and feel.
Yeah, of course.
But if you look at today, a lot more asset-like industry, like tech industry, like those industries you just mentioned, they are now, our investors are much more get themselves into, we have, examples like, HR software on the cloud, actually get access to financing through the equity crowdfunding way. So that's one way a lot of our entrepreneurs are able to tap into the broader investor universe to do that.
How do you get out your word into these peripheral markets or locales where they need it the most? I mean, SC by SC is done in Securities Commission, in front of TPC, very nice area. None of them, they don't need this kind of funding, but the Sarawak entrepreneurs, yeah, they do. Sabah, whatever, East Coast.
Yeah, this is where I think we talk about using online, in this case, internet, as a medium to reach out to the broader investor, right? I think here we do recognize that, you still need to be, the investor group are generally need to be a little bit more sophisticated. They need to be able to use the internet. But I think we're seeing Malaysian as a general actually have raised, the awareness in adopting this new technology. Now, granted, I think the earlier few years we are fairly well centered around the Klang Valley area, but I think the last year or two we have now gradually expanded out. I think for this year we have expanded out to Penang, Johor Bahru, and we just did our investor education program in Borneo a couple months back. So we are trying to reach out to, so there are two groups. One is the issuers, they are this entrepreneur who wants money, as well as the investors, right? I think investors now, I think we are actually catering not just because of the power of internet, we are not just catering to the domestic investors, we also have investors from overseas who can use this means to also invest in the Malaysian entrepreneurs.
Do you have that problem of trying to innovate and roll out products as fast as possible, but at the same time maintaining security at the highest order, making sure that everyone, both investors and entrepreneurs, are not scammed along the way? How do you ensure that you can maintain that delicate balance of being fast to the market as well as being safe at the same time?
Yeah, this is a difficult challenge, I think, granted. I think so to address the direct point, I think, firstly, I think this particular mode is a new thing. I think people need to get used to it. At the same time, I think if you look at our regulatory guidelines, we have certain investor protection measures in place. An example for retail investors, for equity crowdfunding, we are limiting the investor, the maximum 5,000 ringgit they should invest, all the way to per year they should invest no more than 50,000 ringgit, just to make sure the investor are protected. On the other hand, if you are a sophisticated investor where you have the means and the affordability, you can invest beyond that limit. So there are some measures that we are put in place to protect our investors. With regards to whether the platform or the entrepreneur legitimate and all, we are requiring our operators who are actually conduct due diligence on these issuers. Lastly, I would say that only the operators, whether it's equity crowdfunding or peer-to-peer, who are actually approved by SC are allowed to operate this business. I think your listeners and your viewers should actually look up to SC website to look at all the if you like, approved operators who are allowed to operate such a business in Malaysia.
We'll take a short break before we continue our conversation with the Securities Commission. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying on with us. This is Notepad. I am with Wei Min, the Executive Director of the Securities Commission. We are talking about the SC by SC, that is a Fintech Conference that is happening at the Securities Commission in Kuala Lumpur on the 22nd to 23rd of October. Wei Min, I understand that the key topics of SC by SC for this year includes some of the normal things that you guys normally talk about, including digital assets and cryptocurrency, Islamic fintech, and of course fintech entrepreneurship as you would know it. But there are some other issues that are that continues to be evolving, including that of in electronic know your customer, or EKYC, basically a digital identity aspect of it, as well as the cybersecurity aspect of it, and how you can drive artificial intelligence into ensuring the cybersecurity is always maintained. It seems like there's a lot to cover. If I go there, and I'm an entrepreneur, and if I go to SC by SC over 2 days, how can I maximize my comprehension of the fintech world?
Yeah. It's a great question. Indeed, I think one of the big challenge for us organizing such a fintech event is actually trying to cater to a quite vast, diverse needs. Just thinking back in 2014 when we started, we were only just a small group, focusing on equity crowdfunding, to today we're all catering for a big group. If you look at us, I think for the last two and a half years, a lot of the operators now go live. I think one of the main theme for SC by SC 2019 is looking at scaling up the business. That means they have now operated most of their businesses, our fintech businesses, for 2, maybe 3 years. So one of the key themes for us, we actually brought some of the speakers who actually from overseas, who have actually experienced through the whole scaling up. Right? If you look at our 2 key speakers, in this case, Eli Broverman, who is the co-founder of Betterment, who are now have $16 billion asset under management. They have gone through that process. So we have invited the speaker who in turn come and share their experience. Likewise, Jeff Kuttenden, who is also the co-founder of Acorns. So in this case, we have actually invited them to share their experiences, how they have gone through their scaling up of their businesses with our technopreneur, which in turn helping them, in turn hopefully save them some roadblock that in turn to get to the next stage of their businesses. We also would want some of these speakers come and share their experiences in this case to look at how do they collaborate with the existing ecosystem or incumbents. How do they work with the banks? How do they work with other parts of the financial systems? Which again, I hope our technopreneur benefit from there.
Okay.
You are right that there are quite a diverse agenda that we are trying to cater to. So for people who then, that is part of our goal to have people who attend our conference to also get a broader perspective, whether it's in cyber, whether it's in AI, in cybersecurity, whether it is in the KYC domain. We still want to have those topics. That is actually quite close to the SC's thinking.
Some of the operators, casually, when I speak to them, they were, I guess, impatient about their growth levels. And then this has nothing to do with SC, of course, but this is something to do with the market itself, where they believe that investors in Malaysia, and for that matter entrepreneurs, are yet to embrace P2P and ECF, equity crowdfunding, in its whole entirety. I don't know whether these kind of, and of course, it shows in their numbers, right? The asset's not growing billions of ringgit. why do you think this is happening? Why do you think that that Malaysians in general are yet to accept this, in terms of lock, stock and barrel, the idea of getting funds and getting investments through these kind of platform?
Yeah, I guess there is still a lot to do within our space. I think there is a whole pent-up demand need for the SMEs. But at the same time, we also need to cater to the investor group who actually want to put money. So I think part of what we do for SC by SC, as well as a broader investor outreach program, is to educate. I think you are right. I think currently, I think the informations are much more fluid. I think right now we are within the Klang Valley. We are looking to expand out to educate both the issuers who wants money, as well as the investor who can treat this as investment asset class. Again, this is not the same thing for everybody, because there are certain risks involved. Our investor, I encourage them to look at, to assess their own risk appetite before they put investment in this.
Yeah.
I think there are some elements of the risk that they need to be aware that how much risk they can take on upon themselves as they invest in such an instrument.
Yesterday I had Manulife Asset Management, right? And he was talking about robo-advisors and asset management is the best, because Manulife, and if you don't like Manulife, fine, there's only other asset management. This correlates the idea of investor, right? Because nobody, other than Warren Buffett or whatever, right? You don't have a day job as an investor. You have a day job doing something else, and you don't want to mess the ideas of how or spend some time of brain power in terms of doing many other things on top of doing their day job. They just want to do their day job, and whatever savings that they have, they want to invest in something that is safe, that can, they can sit comfortably in terms of risk management. And these kind of individuals, it doesn't matter what age bracket they are in, it doesn't matter what income bracket they are in, they just want to understand as little as time as possible what are the options out there, so that they can spend their money wisely, at the same time continue doing their day job. Do you think that these kind of group of individuals would benefit from attending SC by SC?
Yeah, totally. I think again, what SC has been doing is to provide that, make available these sort of different investment options, right? Like you say, people like you could have benefited, put a part of your money maybe in equity crowdfunding, could be in peer-to-peer, and some of the portfolio management capabilities through the robo-advisor.
Yeah.
And you should be able to allocate some of your assets in that manner, and a lot of these has a very low entry barrier, right? You need 50 ringgit to go into ECF, or even peer-to-peer.
Yeah, of course, $100.
You can even I think today for the robo-advisory side on the digital investment management, there's a very low entry, and then you'll be able to asset allocate accordingly. And if you come to SC by SC, then you will be able to hear some of these topics. We do recognize one of the biggest challenge for us now 6 years in organizing this event is we also can't be every time the event just 101. I think we are not just a basic knowledge.
Okay, yeah.
So what we have is during the plenary and the morning session tend to be a more in-depth discussion. But for people who want to know more, there's an afternoon session, there's a dedicated workshop session for the new or novice investor to have a session with either the robo-advisor firm or in this case digital asset exchange. They can actually look at, they will actually have an hour session with the individual provider to get better understanding on some of the basics of some of these instruments.
No, you're right. I think actually you've touched on a very interesting point, right? How long will you do a one-on-one, right? Yeah. Because this is the 6th year, and I'm so sorry for those that have just gotten wind of the word of that. Okay, this is another way of investment.
Yeah.
But there's like different levels of people trying to understand, and because I guess you explained just now, plenary session, we're just going straight ahead,
deeper,
without the need to go through the basics. That allows people like me perhaps to just skip the boring parts and just go into what the development is, right?
Yep.
That would be something interesting. And because of this, do you think that there's some highlights that you want to mention where, okay, maybe this is a good idea for these kind of people attending, or some other elements where other investors might be interested in? What would be some of the key features for this year's SC by SC?
Yeah. Again, I think the SCxSC this year main theme is about scaling up the businesses. So these are here one of the major part. I think we're encouraging our entrepreneurs as well as technopreneur who want to have understand the experience. So we have prominent speakers who come and share the experience. That is one of the key area that we were looking at. At the same time, as mentioned, some of the basic stuff I think is in the afternoon. But 2-3 of the key highlights for this year is we're beginning to explore Islamic fintech. So this is the first year we're actually treating as a very important topic. We're also looking at how do we can cater that. I think if you come from the day 2, there is a morning session to actually talk a bit about Islamic fintech. So this is the beginning of a journey to look at. Although today our guidelines and regulation allow any of the provider provide both the conventional and Islamic product, but this is we're beginning for this year's SCxSC. If you come, we're going to look at is that a provider that we need to do. Now, having said that, we are today for the equity crowdfunding and peer-to-peer, we have 2 providers who are actually dedicated to provide Islamic as an Islamic provider. But there are also a traditional provider who also provide the Islamic investment note, which in turn within them offer the Islamic product as well. But I think with this, while our framework and regulation provides it all, but I think for this year we're also beginning to look at how do we cater this as focus this group and be able to develop further. And again, SCxSC typically is kind of the window where we share experience, what's happening today. To some extent, is also sharing with the public some of the thinking we have. Another good example, if you look at our agenda, is we're also beginning to look at digital asset related derivatives and funds, which is part of a main topic on day 1. And again, this is just kind of giving the public some insight as to what SC is thinking in the coming year. If you go to, you go back to some of the previous events that we have, we typically share what we are thinking in the coming year in our SCxSC. If you can look at that, I think we can actually debate with to the community some of our thinking and hopefully get feedback from the community, what are the thinking they have as well.
All right, we'll take a short break before we conclude our conversation with the Securities Commission. Don't go anywhere. Thanks for staying on with us. Joining me is the Securities Commission. We've been discussing a lot about fintech and about SCxSC, but since I've got you here, what is the, I guess, outlook for the capital markets moving forward? The basis that I have is that fixed income is doing okay, it's doing well. Interest rates being cut left and right and center. Perhaps that would get a little bit more exciting for the fixed income segment. Equities is terrible. I always joke with all the people that come to IPO, AME Consortium, for instance, that just came here. I said, wow, you're listing at the most vibrant equity market in the world, the KLCI. But how are we going to make sense of the capital markets moving 2020?
Yeah, I think capital market, will continue to function. One of the main purpose is to help fundraise and help financing for the underlying economy. I think if you look at the last 5-6 years, we've consistently raised about 90 to 100 billion ringgit, helping the industry, whether it's fixed income or equity. We will continue to function there. I think we need to stay steadfast to that. Part of the fintech and SCxSC initiative is about how do we extend the value chain of what we do today, to extend that to be more inclusive, to include micro and SME. Right? So here we are looking to help raise financing for the micro and SME, so through equity crowdfunding, through peer-to-peer financing. At the same time, we also use capital market to also has an alternative investment for our investors as well. So in this case, we have the robo-advisory, people can invest in the investment notes in this, and more recently, we have the digital asset. So hopefully for us, we position capital market to function both in terms of fundraising for the issuers, but at the same time, to be an exciting place for also our investor who in turn use this.
Of course, this is the second year that this new government introduced the budget, and plenty of things that we can make out of the budget. But we've also seen some 10-year economic plan, including the Shared Prosperity Plan of 2030. All these are long-term targets, and it seems like while it is important for us to have you know, a railway track that we can all get on board and head towards a destination down the road. People are still concerned about what's going to happen in the next few months, currency issues, you know, is there going to be parliamentary change, cabinet change, PM change, all these short-term, I guess, risk factors. Do you foresee investors, not just, you know, retail investors, but institutional investors, both in the country as well as outside, would Malaysian economy still be vibrant moving forward, at least for 2020?
I certainly hope so. I think for the Malaysian economy, I think we still think that it's still on a growth trajectory. I think what we need to do from a capital market perspective, continue to function what we do best, which is to help lubricate the economy, provide financing the economy. A lot of things we do within the digital agenda is to provide that underlying SME, hopefully be the backbone for our industry. You're right, you know, the long-term master plan is to look at, you know, our SME from today 36-37% of the GDP to 50% as part of the new vision. We want to be part of that. We want to be able to use what we can do to help these small and medium enterprises to go upstream into high-tech industry, to be able to be more relevant and to be more core to our growth engine for the country.
All right. Again, if anybody wants to learn more about SC or Securities Commission or SC event, how do they get about that?
Yeah, I would welcome all your viewers to come to our SC event. The URL is SCxSC.my. It will be on the October 22nd, 23rd, and you will be at the SC building in the Persiaran Bukit Kiara.
Front of TPC, where everybody, all the micro entrepreneurs are there.
Yes.
That was my conversation with Wei Min. He is the Executive Director of Securities Commission. Do check out the website. SC is always an interesting event to attend. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to AstroAWANI.com. Look for Notepad. All these interviews are there. You can also watch these interviews on your mobile devices. Just download AstroAWANI.com app wherever you get the application. Until next time, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.